Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focus Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and I'm joined once again by Ragivah Mahdi. Hey, Ragivah Mahdi, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Martin. How about yourself, man? It's good to hear your voice, good to be heard, and excited about being on the podcast again.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. I'm really excited to have this conversation that we keep having. And I was driving from Miami to Boca Raton, where we live now, and
You like saying that, huh? You like saying
I
that.
kind of do. Well, here's
I
the part
kind of like notice how that flipped off of your lips, off your tongue.
Yeah,
Boca Raton. I'm like, damn, bro. Okay.
Well, here's the part I really like. The part I really like is that, we're maintaining a home base in Pittsburgh, for Felicia's work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were in Pittsburgh, doing business stuff for her work at Yoga Roots on location. And the part I really like is that I left Pittsburgh and flew home to Florida. Just that feeling, right? Like, because usually it's like the whole time I've lived here, it's only been like 3-4 weeks. I've been thinking, well, when do I go home? When is this vacation over? And when do I go home? And then I just get to keep saying, this is home.
Well, and then the next move is to get, don't y'all want a home in Philadelphia too? So Philadelphia.
We do. Yeah.
Right,
we'll be somewhere close to Pittsburgh, probably Philly area, so that we can maintain the business there, Felicia's business there. And absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have a place in both. Cause I really do like winter. And I'm also learning, Mahdi, that I really like the warm Decembers too, which you've had your whole life. But
what's not to like about Florida?
Yeah. There's some interesting people. I'll say that.
Let me tell you something. Oh my God.
Some interesting policies, and this is the only state in the country that's like 100% open in terms of COVID. It's like it's pretend it doesn't exist. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, really. I don't know if you can call that conservative. I don't know. You can't call that conservative. Call that like wow. That's what I call it. Wow.
And it is wild because it's not just, trust me, nobody wears a mask here. Like 90% of the people, it doesn't matter your political party, your age, people are not wearing masks unless they have to wear masks. It is wild. It is really wild. But there's something about this place. It's beautiful, physically beautiful place. And, being 20 minutes from the ocean and being able to just decide to hop in the car and be in there like that, it's a beautiful thing, man. So
yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm enjoying it for you, just vicariously, enjoying the sunshine for you. When you tell me you're on the beach, you and your wife on the beach, I'm like, oh shit, Of course I'm in Houston. I'm in the sunshiny place too, but
yeah. That's why, I've never lived in the South. You lived in the South your whole life, and
I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, and I get it. I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to get it for sure. So what's going on with you? How are you doing? What's up in your world?
Well, last night I went to see my nephew play, and they made it to the regional championships in 6A football. If anybody know anything about Texas football, 6A is like the top league, and we went up against what they call the team called DeSoto out of the Dallas area. And they really were so big. They had our guys looking like they were small, but it was a good game. We didn't prevail 27-21. We had them 14-0 at first half. It was our game to lose, and we did lose it. I think it was just a matter of they wore us down because they were so big. Literally, I was like, are these high school kids? I'm like, damn. They weren't that good. They were, for as big as they weren't as dynamic and as electric as our guys were.
Right.
And, they were rather soft, but they leaned all game long and big old bodies, boy. I tell you that. Our offensive linemen, after, going into the second half, you could see that they were exhausted from the big trees leaning on them.
Just wore them down, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing. I think most everybody's at least heard of the movie or the series Friday Night Lights at this point and understand that it's essentially a religion, right? It's just
it's real. Look, if you never heard about Texas football, it is real. My nephew is like one of the top quarterbacks in the state of Texas. I think his total yards for the year is like 5,000. 4,000 throwing and maybe 1,500 running. He's a dynamic kid, right?
Wow.
And he's just a junior. So looking forward to, to next year and stuff. But Texas football is a religion. Hell with Yeah, they say hell with church. They take me to the football field.
Absolutely.
We go and pray. We go and pray on the football field.
Yeah, say his name for our listeners, because our listeners are going to want to follow him now.
Yeah, Bishop Davenport. Bishop Davenport, the QB.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing to be able to follow his career. So that's wonderful, man. So a couple of days ago, I got a text from you, Mahdi,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to read that text, and I want to ask you some questions about this text. Is that
All
cool?
right, cool. Sounds good.
All right. So you texted me on Thursday. You said, in order to be able to become a butterfly, the caterpillar has to fall apart completely, decomposed to its very essence, devoid of any shape or consciousness. It literally dies. There is nothing left of it. And from this liquid essence, the butterfly starts to put itself together from scratch. Are you ready to become a butterfly?
Mm.
That was the text I got from you a couple of days ago. And it definitely blew me away, right? And my first question is, like, what inspired you to send that to me? What inspired you to text me that, Mahdi?
Well, to be honest with you, I was like researching the stages of the caterpillar butterfly stages more intricately. I wanted to get more detailed and more precise about the whole journey. And I read that online and shared it with you. I forgot who it was that said it, but it was describing the process. And I was so fascinated and so moved by it. I was like, I shared it with everybody in my, circle.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I wanted us to consider that when we really make a decision, everything changes.
Mm.
And because the caterpillar into the butterfly is not really a decision, because it's already the decision is already built into the caterpillar. Once it gets to a certain point, the decision is already built in. The caterpillar will become liquefied, completely lose its identity as a caterpillar, and then a butterfly will be shaped from the experiences that are now chemicalized into a whole new body, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought about that in relationship to decisions, and how when we make a decision, there is no turning back. A decision is a real serious thing. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen is that quote unquote, supposed caterpillars talk about that they're on the way to becoming butterflies and never become butterflies. It's like, imagine, I used to live in New Orleans, and I live in Houston now. So it's a 5-hour drive. So imagine, driving to New Orleans, and, I'm expecting you. I'm in New Orleans waiting for you. And it's been 6-7 hours. You haven't got there yet. And I call you and I say, where you are? And you say, I'm still on my way. Then the next day you say the same thing. I'm on my way. 10 days go by, you're still on your way. You never get to New Orleans. But you always say that you're on your way to New Orleans. Mm. And for so many people are stuck on, I'm on my way to New Orleans. I'm on my way to becoming a butterfly. And the reality is that they are bullshitting. Mm. When we make a decision to do something, there is no I'm on my way. It happens in the moment you make the decision. Yeah. And so that's the reason why I said that, is because here's the thing. Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
So if I would ask you, where in your life are you not giving it everything you got? And when I say I'm asking you that question, I'm also asking
absolutely
the persons who are listening to this podcast, where in your life are you not giving it everything you got? And what brought that up for me was watching my nephew play.
Right.
And watching him be courageous enough to give it everything he has. So much so that, he had 2 hyperextended toes and still played, and you couldn't even tell they were hyperextended until after the game. He was, his toes were so big he had to take his shoes off because his feet couldn't fit in the shoes. But when you give your life everything you got, nothing is the same. And you walk out of the situation, you become what the next thing is for you to become when you give your life everything you got. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I came to the conclusion was, which was very powerful for me driving back from it, is that, living is about giving it all you got. Surviving is about not giving it all you got for whatever reason you come up with. I mean, we could come up with a whole bunch of reasons why we can't. Something happened in our past. We weren't treated right. We were abused as a child. We were traumatized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yet what still comes up is the fact that we are responsible, totally responsible for our own growth. At no time are we ever not responsible for our own growth. So at no time are we never not responsible for giving it all we got. And when we find ourselves not giving it all we got, that is a problem, because life is for the living. Life is for those who give it all they got.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you answered the question I was going to ask you back, because I think your question's a powerful one, like you said, not just for me, but for everybody. And I want to tell you too, because when I read that, one of my very first thoughts was, is he just sending this to me, or is he sending this to a bunch of folks on the text list? And I figured he probably sent it to a bunch of folks. And I also kind of just took it as a direct question to me too, because this is a quandary. Like, this is something. And my question back to you was, I'm not sure what it means to give everything you've got to anything. I'm not sure I know what that feels like. I'm not sure a lot of us really know what that feels like in terms of life. I think
let's explore it. Let's explore it. Let's explore
absolutely.
That.
Yeah. No, I want to, but I want to just say this, right? Like your example, like there's definitely moments. So your example of your nephew giving it everything he's got while he's on that football field. And then does he give everything he's got in other areas of his life? Is that the area of his life he gives everything he's got? Because see, to me, when I read what you read, like the sort of challenge and the question for me was like, I do sometimes, like,
right.
Sometimes I want to, but I haven't experienced yet giving everything I've got, like the majority of the time or all the time or whatever,
Right.
So yeah, I do want to explore that with you, because that's, even as just listening to you now, I'm like, I don't really know exactly what that feels like to do that the majority of the time,
Right. That's good. And glad, we could talk about this and be honest about it, because it's like a domino effect too.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're creating a standard for yourself. It is like unparalleled in the face of what life looks like when you're not giving it all you got. It's so like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
In the area or where you're giving it all you got, or when you start giving it all you got, it is so night and day to you not. That it leaves a mark, an indelible mark in your soul, that something is not quite right if you can continue to exist in what it feels like to not give it all you got after you've given it all you got, and you felt the fulfillment and the joy and the triumph and a sense of accomplishment that comes with giving it all you got, versus I'm not and I'm settling. So when we settle, what we are doing is what we are. I like to use this word pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
We are settling for pathetic secondary benefits. We have chosen, and I say chosen, not decided, because a choice and a decision is not the same thing. A decision is the execution of your will. A choice is what follows the execution. So in other words, a choice will line up with the decision. But if you don't make a decision, then the world will give you choices, or you would take what is there without realizing that there's still a decision to be made. Some of us never make decisions. We wait for the world to make decisions for us, and that's not a decision. You can't get credit for a decision is the execution of your will, and no one else can execute your will but you. Right. So the more our lives are not like nuanced and unique to what we are, is a sign that we have not been executing our will. We have not been making decisions for ourselves. So pathetic secondary benefits is like, when I make excuses for myself, people feel sorry for me. And I like people feeling sorry for me, because my ego kind of relishes in it, giving you an example. I like being the victim because, when I play the victim, then it gives me sort of like the ups where, people don't expect as much from me as they would if I showed up as my champion self. You get what I'm saying? So there are secondary benefits, and we could go on through a whole bunch of them. What are some secondary benefits that you see in your life in the area when you are not giving it all you got? What are some of the secondary benefits that make you hang around not giving it all you got? Because people hang around. We hang around not giving it all we got, and we make that a way of life.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely been the way of life for much of my life, and I think when you talk about the benefits of it, the first thing I think of, and again, I want to make sure that folks are asking themselves this question. I got a little tinge when you said, pathetic secondary benefits. And I know our listeners felt the same thing, Mahdi, Ragivah Mahdi.
Yeah.
I know they felt it because that's intense. Like pathetic is an intense word,
Yeah, I chose very, very purposely to use the word pathetic, because here's why I call it pathetic, because in the face of the rewards that come with giving it all you got, settling for, half-assing it, half-heartedness, is pathetic.
Right.
And if you ever experience giving it all you got in any moment, the level of vibration is so high that, to go back to settling is like, what the fuck are you doing? What happened?
And I think, I think what happened is, the first thing I thought of when you asked me that question for myself was, in my teenage years at, 15, 16 years old, I was diagnosed with depression, severe depression. Right. And it's something I've dealt with my whole life in different ways. My definition of it has changed. And one of the things that I've asked myself is, what are the benefits of being depressed? Right. Because I think
those secondary benefits, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's my first answer to your question, is that I came to a point where the things that made me depressed didn't have to make me depressed anymore. Depression almost became an addiction, and addiction is a painful thing. And yet you feel like you're benefiting. Right. So how is I benefiting from depression? Well, the main way you benefit from depression is it's comfortable. It's comfortable. You don't feel like you can get any lower. Right. You feel like your only way up is up. And, and you can stay stuck in that victim place. Like, look at how fucked up things are for me. Right. The other secondary benefit is that it feels safer. It feels like the easy, safe choice, because like if we're equating giving everything you've got to becoming a butterfly, which means liquefying, dying, and then flying around in the air with these two like feathery wings that, could be punctured anytime, that's scary as hell. You know what I'm saying? Like being a butterfly is scary as hell.
But that's not even real.
Well, I understand that. But you asked me what the benefits were, and I'm saying that the benefits are psychological. I get that, or they're an illusion. I get
it. All this is a mental thing, because when we say dying, we're talking about dying in identity that's not really real. It's not who you are, but we relish in it so much until we begin to believe that's who we are, but it's really not who we are. Because I know for me, when I went through 16 years of depression as a kid, just like yourself, my secondary benefit was I used to imagine my death and how, I thought in my mind how people would come to my funeral and cry over me. And I thought I would matter in death in a way that I didn't matter in life. And so I used to get high off of that. Like that was a high, that was a secondary benefit, but it was a pathetic one in the face of when I decided to give my life all that I had. It became very, 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 very clear to me that I could not go back to that, because it was like, going back to such a less vibration that it would be like, sleeping with a slug, slime left all on you spiritually, because you have tasted the mountaintop and now you're going back into down way in the valley, not because life has put you there or because you're going through another challenge in your life, but because you really decided to stay there. You decided to execute your will to stay there,
Yeah. And you know what? This is wild, because I did the exact same thing. Ragivah Mahdi. I did the exact same thing. I imagine my funeral all the time. Imagine my death all the time. Imagine my funeral all the time. And as I became less alone and more actualized and recognized, like in the social justice world in Seattle, I used to measure how I felt by how many people I thought would come to my funeral. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I literally used to measure my
I
word.
can relate to that.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing good now, my D, because I'm doing good because all these people would come. Like all these people would come to my funeral now because they know me through the work that I'm doing around, fighting against racism and starting these anti-racist groups and all these different, anti-racist white groups,
Right.
all these different things that I did.
You know what though?
And
You know
literally
what?
measure my worth externally, and that's the definition of ego, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. But I'm gonna tell you what shook my ass out of it. Driving to go visit my mother for Thanksgiving holiday after going through my training. I started my training with my teacher, Master Wali, and as I'm driving down the highway, I started having an out of body experience. My being leaving my body, and being consciously aware of it, being able to see myself drive the car from the back of my head. It was like surreal. And I came back in my body, and it started again as I got further down the road. And I was like, whoa. I pleaded and, begged to have another chance to have my life. And what I realized in that moment was that, see, what life did for me in that moment, what my life did for me was get me to understand what a decision really is. A decision is final.
Right.
When you make it, that's it. You leave the realm of where you were to go into a whole totally different realm, which is what the caterpillar does to become a butterfly. It makes a decision, which is built in its own nature. But for human beings, we have to actually consciously make the decision. But once we make a decision, everything changes. Nothing is ever the same when you make a decision. Nothing.
Right.
So in that moment, when I saw that death was final, death is a decision.
Yeah.
It's a decision built into the fabric of life. All of us have to die physically. We don't ever die spiritually because we are infinite beings. So, but we do die. Our bodies do die or transition, or we should say transmutate into other forms. Right. But once you make a decision, that's it. So once death showed me that death was for real, and the unique way in which I came to express myself in this moment was going to be lost forever. There was no way to recreate that again because it's a mathematical genius. Just the whole idea of who you are it's really an example of mathematical mastery. You can never put the variables that have made you come together ever again together. Ever again. You will never see this combination of Moses Martin ever again.
Right.
Ever. Ever, 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 in all of ever, whatever ever is. Ragivah Mahdi, this combination, these variables that have come together to make me, you will never see this ever again. I have only one opportunity to make an indelible mark in life such that Ragivah Mahdi will be known throughout the ages of time. Why do I want that? Because I choose to. That's what I choose to want to do, is to make a mark. That's all it is to it. I mean, ain't nobody says it's got to be a rule. If you feel like you're a slug, you could go out being a slug. I'm not a slug.
Yeah. You know what my nickname was in high school?
What's that?
My nickname in high school was Slug.
Wow.
I know you don't know that either.
No, I didn't. Wow.
But you know how I got that nickname? Because, I spent my whole high school time like getting high and, doing drugs, selling drugs. And there was a kid in one of my classes one time, because I went out for, I would ask to go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, at the drinking fountain. And I come back 20 or 30 minutes later because I went outside and got high during that time. And there was a kid in my classroom that said, "Man, you move so slow when you go to get a drink of water that you must be a slug."
Wow.
And so that was literally that was my nickname for a little while, not for a long time, but for a little while. And that's, that was around the time that I think, a lot of what you're saying is resonating with me. I have a feeling some other people might be having the same question I'm having right now. You're defining like a singular moment, and that singular moment leads to a decision that then is impactful for the rest of your life. And for me, I don't feel like I have that one singular moment. I
don't really think it's one singular moment.
But I mean but that moment that you talk about, and I've heard you talk about it before,
right? But that's just
face death and say, no, I'm choosing life. I don't know. I mean, I have a moment like that, but since then, there's been a lot of backsliding.
I don't think it's a singular moment though. I think it's because I've had so many moments. That one stands out because it was dramatic. I tended to be the kind of guy that needed a dramatic shit happen for me to, get my attention, until I got more cooperative with myself. But for the longest, I needed those dramatic, because, I was, depressed for 16 years. I needed something dramatic. But the reality is, what I've come to understand through experience and through working with thousands of people, is that a decision is the most powerful thing we have in our arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
It is the execution of your will. And when you execute your will, it's like, imagine saying in this moment, you are leaving a will and you say, my last will and testament is to live my life as a slug. How would that sound? Like my last will and testament is to, is to be afraid of being myself. Is to never accept who I am. That's my last will. I'm willing myself to do that. Because when you make a decision, that's what you're doing. You're willing yourself. You're willing the energy of your life to do whatever is in alignment with that decision. I remember when I wanted to get a divorce. When I got a divorce, I wasn't happy in my marriage with Dr. Stephanie. We were real good friends and we got along real well on the intellectual level, but I felt like we weren't close. We weren't sleeping together. It was kind of strange. And, so I asked her one day, I asked her if she was happy, and she said she was very happy, and I was very sad. So then when I said, well, I wanted a divorce, and she says, look, I'll grant you divorce. She says, but you're going to have to make a decision to get it yourself. I'm not joining that party because it's not my decision. That was huge for me because I felt like I was not giving it all that I had. Life. I wasn't going all out. I wasn't giving it everything I got. I wasn't leaving everything on the line and didn't feel like I could.
Right.
I actually felt like I was dying in a lot of ways. So in feeling that, I was left with having to make a decision, and I made a decision was I need to go discover what it feels like for me to give it everything I got in this area of my life. Intimate relationships, right? Because I had struggled with that for a long time. So I made a decision to get a divorce. Now, when I made a decision, nothing was ever the same again. See, that's the thing about making a decision. Nothing can ever be the same again. See, the thing that we tend to do is we pretend to make decisions when we haven't.
Right.
And we use that as an excuse to people. It's like saying I'm on my way to New Orleans, but you've been on your way to New Orleans for a few years. You're like, wait, hold up. How long does it take you to get to New Orleans? It said 5 hours, and it really takes less than 5 hours if you really make a decision to get there. I've gotten to New Orleans in 2.5 hours because I really wanted to get there. See, depending on how hungry you are to get there will determine how fast it takes you to make the decision. But once you make a decision, nothing is ever the same again. I want to say this, and I want people who are listening to really pay attention to this. A decision is so powerful that when you make it for real, it deletes programs in your subconscious mind. It deletes them. In fact, it is the way that we can actually clear our mind of so much shit if you go into your life and you really make decisions. Really make them. And what I mean by that is like, so right now you're listening, ask yourself, what is a decision? So ask yourself, don't ask me, ask yourself, what is a decision? Because you need to engage in a conversation with yourself. We talk to ourselves all the time anyway. So ask yourself, what is a decision? And then when you find yourself trying to answer the question, I want you to then ask yourself, what does a decision feel like? And I want you to get more in touch with what it feels like, because intellectually, you're going to just, fart on yourself trying to intellectually figure it out because it is a spiritual thing. What does it feel like to truly make a decision? Some people say a relief, liberation, and some people will say it feels like responsibility.
And some people would say all of that.
Yeah, all of the above, right?
Yeah.
And so when all of that falls on you, then nothing is the same. In your mind now, there's a recalibration that happens where you can't afford to mess around with at all everything that you've done before. You go to the doctor says, listen, if you don't change your diet, you have 6 months to live. Boy, decision come real fast. You at that moment, your will and testament is to do what? To change my diet and live. So what happens? You leave the doctor's office and you start giving it everything you got. You start eating like you're giving it everything you got. And life is different. Nothing is ever the same again. So the question is, what's stopping you from making a decision?
Mm-hmm. And that's the real question, isn't it? Because I think
The
all of us.
answer is comical the answer is
Well,
comical, but
yeah, because the
that's
answer's us, right?
well,
The
no,
answer's
no,
us.
it is us, of course, but the real answer is comical. But it's a good question. What stops us from making a decision? So as you're listening to this podcast, what's stopping you from making a decision right now? What's stopping you, Martin, from making decisions in your life where you feel like you're not giving it everything you got? What's stopping you from making a decision?
I mean, I would say, first of all, I think this is a great podcast for people to actually like pause it and like write this down or think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that this is a really great example of like, really doing self-reflection. And so for me, what keeps me from making the decisions, I would say, to be really honest, it's fear of the unknown,
Mhm.
fear of, feeling like, basically, I feel like I've inherited this programming that if I really make a decision, bad things will happen.
Mm.
Like, and when I say inherited, I just mean just, family, multi-generational stuff, given being a Ashkenazi Jew and the history that my ancestors came out of, and just this idea that when you really make a decision, that's the main thing that I think of right now. Now,
Mm.
my life doesn't reflect that. My experience doesn't reflect that. But there's a decision. The ultimate decision to me is to 100% fully embrace being alive
Mhm.
and not ever go back on that. That's the ultimate decision that I feel like I haven't made. And there's some fear about terrible things will happen to me if I fully make that decision. So
Right.
that's what comes up for me.
And
And I
thank you
and
for
I know I know I'm manufacturing it now. Maybe these messages came from other places, but I know I'm now manufacturing that. So that's why I say me. That's why I say self is what stops me.
right. And I wouldn't say that's not self because it's self already made a decision already.
Yeah.
You made a decision to come into this world. Nobody made that decision for you.
Right. Right.
As spirit beings, we decided to come into this world because we wanted to come and experience life. So that decision was already made. The decisions that we make consciously are decisions to line up with the decision that's already made. You already decided to live.
Right.
I want everybody to think about that for a minute. We all have already decided to live, and the game of life is not about holding back. The game of life is about giving it everything you got.
Right.
So everywhere where we're not giving it everything we got is where we are in conflict with the decision that was already made to live. Now that's deep when you think about it,
Yeah, it is.
because we're talking about programming. And remember, decisions that you make consciously delete programs. It deletes programs that are operating in your subconscious mind immediately when you truly make the decision, right? I'm not talking about when you say you're making it, when you truly make it. So what stops us from making a decision? It's so comical. Nothing. Nothing stops us from making a decision.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that, the stories we make up are not real. They are nothing. They are no thing. The only bearing that they are having is inside your head. And they are made up. It's like a sitcom that it's a movie. You know it's a movie because you the one made it.
Right.
You directed and produced the movie. You know it's a sitcom, but yet every day you find yourself watching that same sitcom at the same time it come on, telling yourself the same shit over and over again, and you find yourself caught up in that same movie.
Right.
But it's not real. It's nothing. Nothing stops us from making a decision when we really want to.
Yeah. And that's so when I think what I was really saying was false self, right? Because
Well,
that's
your
what you're really
ego.
saying. You're really
Yeah,
saying
ego.
ego, right? And
Yeah.
ego is that, the unhealthy ego is when an ego takes over,
It
it's
was
all
the
these false
programming. It's the
messages, right?
programming from this
The
world. It's the
programming,
world.
right?
It's
That
the
we've
it's
then internalized. Like we become I'll say tape recorder to date myself, but we now become the DVR, I guess,
right.
to update it, that we're now replaying back. So it feels like it's coming from us, but so when you say nothing stops us, no thing stops us, what I'm saying is the only thing that stops us is we stop us.
No, and we're not even stopping us. We're not even stopping us. That's why I said,
Explain that to me. Then.
see,
I'm not getting that.
your natural self is not stopping you. It can't. Your natural self wouldn't even know how to do it. It's the programming of this world, ego, which is this device, like the device, the governor on the engine of the bus that stops the bus from going any faster than 55 miles an hour. That ego is the same thing that's been installed on our mind. So through programs, that gives us programming that does what? That prevents us from going any faster than 55. So imagine going faster than 55 as the idea of giving your life all you got. So ego is always designed to be the governor to keep us from giving our life all that we got. So, but our natural self never does that. And listen, your spirit, when you wake up in the morning, your spirit is always doing what your spirit do. Your spirit is not altering the path. The natural you is never altering the path. What is altering the path is your thinking.
Right.
Which is for the most part ego, because we've been socialized by the world from the ages of 0 to 7. So our program has been built in by the world, which becomes our ego. Those are the programs that need to be deleted. How do you delete them? You can only delete them by making decisions.
Right. So when I say we, what I mean is we're the only ones that have the ability and the desire to take that governor off, right? Because the world doesn't want to take that governor off. So when I say we, it's us and it's we. I don't mean like our infinite being self, as you talk about, as you taught me. I'm saying we are constantly making decisions to stay where we are by not making the decision to fully actualize, to fully be, to fully embrace life. So when I say we, I'm saying I've never fully made the decision to take my governor off. Right. I've allowed my governor to stay on. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and that's a good analogy, because that's what the decision really is.
Yeah.
To take the governor off, to stop playing with yourself, to take yourself serious.
Right. And not having a governor is scary because you can go as fast as you fucking want.
Well, that's
scary if you've never gone that fast. If you know what I'm saying,
right? It's only scary in the in our limited mind.
I agree.
Because we don't even really know on a mental level right now what it feels like to go 100%. But our being knows. It's all our being knows is to go 100%.
Yeah. And just to close this out, because our time is running short, but I think what I would like to hear from you, because I think you have done this to a level that I really haven't seen in most other people. I've seen a few other people in my life, but I think you've done that to a level. And I think, what I would want to hear from you, and I think what our listeners would want to hear from you, is that the fear is unnecessary. That the other side of making these decisions is actually beautiful. And I know I've made decisions that have had just beautiful things on the other side. My decision to leave Seattle and to move back east and has led me to this beautiful relationship that has now led me to this beautiful place where I live. That I know that making those concrete decisions. And by the way, it was on the heels of being told by a doctor that I was, essentially killing myself with the weight I was carrying. And, that leads to decisions to, start doing martial arts. It leads to decisions that allow me to start to see that I can actually live on the other side of where I have been living.
Well, let me ask you this question, Mark, because I think it's to be a good way to maybe tie it into what we want in the next podcast is, what is the impact of you saying that you are on your way to New Orleans and you're not getting there? What is it? How do you impacting the people that's in New Orleans waiting for you?
Yeah.
And I like the listener to ask themselves that question. So there's places in your life where you have been settling for not going 100%, not going full speed, not giving everything you got. And you have a story that you tell people. Essentially, the story is why you haven't gotten to New Orleans yet.
Right.
It's been 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and you say you're on your way, but you haven't gotten there yet. Right. What is the impact? Because this is what the real self is going to have to deal with. Your ego may be the one causing the problems, but your real self is going to have to correct them. What are some of the things that are going to transpire? What are some of the conditions that are going to be created Now you're creating them because you're still responsible for your whole self. You're responsible for your ego. You're still 100% responsible for your growth. I don't care what you go through in life.
Yeah.
Nothing that we go through will ever take us off the hook for being responsible for our own growth and development. And the reason why that is because no one is responsible for growing us but us.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's responsible for us to get to New Orleans except for us.
For us. There's nobody responsible for giving us a ride. Because I want you to imagine that it's not even a vehicle that you need to get to New Orleans. You just got to make the decision. And once you make the decision, you almost like Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. You are in New Orleans.
That's right.
And there are places in our life where we've been just bullshitting about. We've been acting like we've been trying to make a decision. There's no such thing as trying to make a decision.
Yeah.
There's a decision, and that's it. There's no trying to make a decision.
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, I want to thank you for this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to us building on this some more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a powerful conversation. I think we'll leave folks on a little bit of a cliffhanger, right? That cliffhanger is what does it do? And I would maybe add to the question, what does it do to the people waiting for you in New Orleans, but also what does it do to us to just be on that road for so long, right? What does it do to the people that are waiting for us, and what does it do to us to be on that seemingly never-ending road trip to New Orleans? So that's our cliffhanger. When we talk again and record it, Mahdi, we'll close that cliffhanger out a little bit.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I just want to really thank everybody that listened today and went on this little mini journey with us, because I that's what I feel like. I feel like I just went on a little journey. So you went on that with us, and for that we thank you. We ask you to go on the journey with us, to dive deep into the Soul Focus Group. Go to soulfocusgroup.com and check us out, everything that we offer. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and soon to come to Amazon and a few other places. So we're going to get our reach out as much as we can. Check out our social media. Just look up Soul Focus Group and look for our logo, which should be a very familiar logo to you. Check it out on our website right now. And so we're just so happy that you came on this journey with us today. We want you to know that we love you. We love each and every one of you. And we love that you made the decision to listen to us today, and that you're going to keep making that decision. We thank you. We ask you to stay safe, to stay well in this world. And most of all, we ask you to stay soul focused.
Yes.
If you wish to support and represent the Soul Focus Group, check out our apparel store at our website, www.soulfocusgroup.com/shop.